So, walking around the neighborhood, it's not unusual summertime to see people flying flags that say "Don't give up the ship." Now, I know a little bit something about this. Comes from the War of 1812, Battle of Lake Erie. Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry had a flag made up as his battle flag that says "Don't make up the ship," or "Don't give up the ship." Sorry about that. So what else though? Because it seems sort of saying these 4th of July is coming up in a few days. This is July 1st when I make this video. And I know for a fact that the Battle of Lake Erie was not part of the Revolutionary War, but rather a part of the War of 1812. So it seems sort of strange that these flags come out now. So I do what I usually do. I started looking stuff up on the internet. Okay, so here's what I learned. The new stuff I learned, at least. The dying words of Captain James Lawrence. He was a commander of the U.S. frigate Chesapeake. And on June 1st, 1813, he got into a battle with the British frigate Shannon. He, as I said, his dying words, he was mortally wounded, fatally wounded during this battle. And his dying words were, "Don't give up the ship." Now, Commodore Perry was a friend of his. He was sort of in charge of making the Lake Erie fleet, the Great Lakes fleet. So he's in Erie, Pennsylvania, making the fleet. He learns about this, and so the flagship of his fleet he names the Lawrence after his friend. So we got the U.S. Brig frigate, or U.S. Brig Lawrence. And he has a flag made up by, Margaret Forster Stewart, who was the wife of a friend of his. He had her make a flag. Basically, it's just a blue flag with the writing in white letters, "Don't give up the ship." And that became his battle flag. Now, so August 1813, they're building the fleet. During all this, they make another brig, the U.S. brig Niagara, which is put under command of a Lieutenant Daniel Turner. And it's sort of, we're putting lieutenants in charge of ships here. So it sort of became well known that we're going to have to do more, get more naval officers trained. So eventually a man named Jesse Elliott is put in charge of the Niagara. Like I said, this is all going on in Erie, Pennsylvania. Eventually, a month later, they set out to defeat the British fleet, which is in the Great Lakes. This takes place in Lake Erie, hence it's known as the Battle of Lake Erie. Sail out. This took place on September 10th. They go sailing out. For some reason, no one's quite sure why, the Niagara fell behind. So the rest of the fleet goes forward. They are fairly massacred. The Lawrence loses 2/3 of its crew. Perry takes down his "Don't give up the ship" flag and basically gives up the ship. Him and the rest of his crew get in rowboats, abandon the Lawrence. The British think, they're abandoning the Lawrence, this is a surrender. It wasn't. So, about a half mile away, Niagara's pulling up. Perry assumes command. The battle had been going on, again, long enough for him to lose 2/3 of his crew. I'm assuming half hour, maybe longer. Um, both sides have been shot up, except the Niagara, fully crewed, fully gunned. So he raises his flag, don't give up the ship, and pretty much single-handedly defeats, again, they had already just come out of fighting, so, they were already shot up, but he almost single-handedly defeats the British fleet now. That's where it comes from. So, some more information here. So, like I said, it was June 1st was when James Lawrence died and uttered those words. And so, found out unofficially there is a Don't Give Up the Ship Day, and that's June 1st. So, like I said, it's not a national holiday, but it is, and so some people fly these flags. Again, I see about half of them come out closer to the 4th of July, so I don't know if people are confusing this with a Revolutionary War battle or not, but generally you'll see these flags flown from June up to at least the 4th of July, because why not? So there is an actual Don't Give Up the Ship Day when people fly these flags, and that explains sort of when this happens. Now, living in Ohio, Lake Erie is our northern border, so it's not surprising that we see these flags in Ohio. I know that Pennsylvania they're very proud that they made the Niagara there, so they probably fly them there. I don't know if you get out of Ohio and Pennsylvania, are you going to see many of these flags? Or the further away you get from the Great Lakes, are you going to see these flags as much? Hard to see that on the internet. Sort of a weird question. Not quite sure how I would ask that on the internet. I'm going to say probably not. I could be wrong. So I've been mentioning the U.S. brig and the U.S. frigate and etc. The term USS, that wasn't made official until Teddy Roosevelt's days back in, I believe 1909. So calling a ship USS Niagara, which you'll sometimes see this, the USS Niagara, USS Chesapeake, but back in the day they weren't called this. We're retroactively calling them by what we call them now. Like I said, Teddy Roosevelt made USS the official title for ships. The Niagara, it was sunk. Don't remember when it was sunk. Don't have notes on that. They decided to rebuild it, or they raised it and wanted to rebuild it back in 1913, or they started to. It went on and off with them, different societies, and trying to raise money, and by 1951 it still hadn't been completed. Sort of the idea was to make it into a museum. In 1981, someone decided to convert it from a museum to an actual working ship. So it's not just going to be dry docked, we're going to fix it up to where it can sail. And again, various societies got involved and started and stopped the work, as funding was made available. Then in 2005, the Niagara was given SSV status, so it's the SSV Niagara now. And basically SSV stands for Sailing School Vessel. So people can join a program where they learn how to sail old ships. And not quite sure how long it is. I do know that the Niagara, they do during the summer have day cruises. You can actually go up to Lake Erie and it'll be like a 3 or 4 hour cruise. I actually went on one once. And they'll give a little of the history. That's how I learned most of what I knew before I started, looking up the actual flag history itself. Fun little cruise, you get to see the ship, you get to see them sailing it. Don't get in the way of the official sailors. The official sailors are actually members of the sailing school. That's one of the ways they keep the school financed is they have these students take people out on these cruises and people pay for them. So that's it. Like I said, these flags have been coming out for years now, and I just now like today I noticed that there were more out today than there have been in weeks past. So I just got curious, were people doing this at the wrong time or not? And so I looked it up, and there is an official day. It is June 1st. Again, most people will continue to fly their flags until at least July 4th. Some will fly them all summer. Like I said, I just got curious about what was going on, so I looked some stuff up and thought I'd share it with you. And that's all. Have a nice day, and don't give up the ship.